Hello, welcome to Africa Media. This is Clyde Sharati, and again, it is a pleasure. This is another weekly appointment on AfroShan Live, where we talk about important things that relates to the success and challenges and opportunities relating to African Australian communities. So, just to welcome you on the show from wherever you may be watching from. We will be very happy to see you comment and if you want to comment on video, send us a link, and we will certainly contact you so that we can connect you to the studio and get you to obviously make your comment on video. Today we're talking about a very important topic, which is about Afro success, the success mindset within African Australian communities. You know, Africa is predicted to be the next China, but are Africans up to the challenge to be the world's global economic challenge? That is the question. You know, as I have the habit of saying this on this show, you know, we talk about many things in our communities, but we don't talk enough about success. We don't talk enough about development. We don't talk about business success and everything that goes with that. So we're trying to change a little bit of that and to have a conversation where people can voice their opinions. So wherever you may be watching from, I would like to ask you where you are. Maybe make a comment. Tell us where you are, where you're watching from, so that we know and we can acknowledge you, and then we will also take questions from the audience. If you want to give us your questions, we'll be more than happy to put that. To answer those questions and give you also an opportunity to do that on video, as I said, if you want to. So I suppose we'll start tonight with just one thing. What is success mindset? You know, if you want to be successful in life, it is very important to have a particular mindset. You know, success starts from the mind because it is the person that is has an objective, has a purpose, has a vision and a goal, and they want to go for it. So the mind has to be ready so that the rest of the man or the woman will follow. If the mind is ready, if the mindset is well set, then everything will come from that point. And we have to be able to look at whether our mindset, wherever we may be, in Australia, in Africa, whether we have the proper mindset to achieve success, or whether we need to change things because, you know, we grow up in particular environments that are not always supportive. We grow up with traditions and cultures that do not always, I suppose, connect with the realities of today's world. So we got to change things in the mind before we are able to move forward and be able to achieve whatever goals we may have as individuals, as well as contribute to the community. Um, and then from that point, we need to, I suppose, have there are three things that I'd like to talk about today. I call them the three P's of success. The first P is standing for philosophy, which is all about thinking. The second P is standing for purpose, which is about having a goal, a vision that is clear enough that can drive you to success, both on as a person as well as how you contribute and collaborate with others. You contribute to other people's work and collaborate with them to achieve your own success and the collective success. And then the first thing is perspiration, which is all about work. We ought to be able to work. It's not just about what is happening in your mind. It is also how you actually get that to practically work. And let me just remind you again, please like us on Facebook, share this live feed on your page, and invite your friends to make comments on this. Now, I'll go back to the initial comment I made about Africa being the next China. We know that, for example, in China, the politics of China is still dominated by dictatorship, which is close to the same of what is happening in Africa. Now, Africa is a big place. Not every government in Africa is a dictatorship, but many of them are not sufficiently open. But when we see in China, even though they have a very strong regime, but they're successful. They are becoming successful economically because they focus on economic development. And maybe in our own government back in Africa, in our own leadership forums, we may not necessarily have the leadership that we like, but we can still, make a lot of progress in terms of economic development. So our encouragement as part of this show is, for example, to tell the diaspora that we very much involved in the politics of the country where we come from, but what are we doing on the economic level? These are things that we ought to be able to change ourselves. There are two pillars of development. One is the political pillar or the politics, and the other is economic development. It's the economy. But if you ask Bill Clinton, he will tell you it's all about the economy. So politics is supposed to serve the economy. So in terms of how we can contribute to the development of our own communities, our own countries, wherever we may be from, we, as much as it's important to be active on the political side of things, we also need to be able to contribute on the development side of things. And we have to be able to start and develop businesses. We have to be able to start and develop social enterprises that will help to develop the communities. And that's a challenge that we've always had. In the context of Australia, for example, we have a lot of community groups, for example, but most of them just want to survive on government grants that we get from time to time, and not many are able to raise their own funding in order to be able to run their own activities. But on a personal level, we may be employed, we may have the education that we need, but are you thinking of business? Because if you think of business rather than just being an employee, it means at some stage you're going to be a creator of wealth. You're going to be someone who don't just expect to receive a check from your boss who's going to decide how long you work for. You spend 10 hours every day to get ready and travel and do your work, and that's significant amount of time that is taken there. So how do you become independent and be able to do what needs to be done in order for you to be fully comfortable and be able to raise sufficient income to take care of your own needs, as well as contribute to the broader economy. These are things that of the mindset that we ought to be able to have, not just being employees, but being employers as well. I know, for example, in the context of Melbourne, where there are a lot of issues with young people, for example, some of those issues are arriving because young people are not employed. Youth unemployment is quite high. Now, why are these young people not employed? Well, potentially it's also because we as a community, we don't give them enough opportunities. Yes, the government has a responsibility to give people jobs, but a lot of these jobs for young people come from small businesses. If you look at what's happening in the Asian communities, the Indian communities, the Greeks and Italians and all that sort of thing, a lot of the young people are employed in small businesses from their uncle, from their dad or mom, or all that sort of thing. We have to produce wealth and train our young people to actually be able to develop, to get jobs and develop skills that will enable them in the future to create their own businesses as well, or even be able to successfully run careers and all that sort of thing. So that's again another part of the conversation that we ought to have in our communities, that we are not having, at least not sufficiently, in order for us to progress. So on the philosophy, which is the mindset, where we start, this sort of conversation, we need to change a few things, and then we go into the purpose. We have to have a vision, because you can be very smart, but if you don't have a vision in life, if you don't know what you want to do, that intelligence may not be as useful as you could make it. And in fact, many smart people end up being in jail because they think they can just outsmart everybody until they get caught, and the next thing you know is they're actually in jail. So you have to have a purpose. You have to know what you want to achieve in life, and what is it that you would like to be able to leave as a legacy for those of us who care much about what we would like to leave as a positive legacy in the community. So, and again, it's a very important thing that you have a vision, and that your vision is broken into goals, and goals that also can be broken into very specific objectives. So you know what you're doing now, you know what you want to do very soon in the near future, and you know where you're headed long term. So in order for Africans to be more successful, we ought to be able to organize ourselves, be driven by a vision that we want to be successful, and we want to be able to make a positive impact in our own lives first, in our families, and in our community. So purpose is very important. Are you driven by a vision? Do you get important? I mean, what is it that is driving you in life? And I'm talking here, always putting things into the context of the community, because I think we can achieve a lot when we come together where our goals and visions meet. I may have a vision to do X, Y, Z, and you have another vision, but if we can collaborate where our two visions meet, then it means both of us can be stronger, and that's very important. And then the third point is about perspiration. That is about working. We need to be able to take the vision and put it into work. And I just want to actually, before I go further, I want to remind those who are watching that I'm having a bit of a technical issue that I just need to take 3 seconds to address the technical issue that I have at the moment. Don't go away. I just need to press a button. Okay, sorry for that. Something that was not planned, but it has happened, and we need to make sure that we can attend to it so that the rest of the show will continue. And again, I was talking about the need for us to be able to make progress in whatever area that we are doing, so that the visions that we may have can connect with the vision that other people may have. You need to network with each other. So I think that's a very important thing as well, because you may have a good vision. You may also be very smart. You may have a good thinking, but who are the people that you're going to work with in order for you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve? Do you have a good network? Because that is actually very important. When you have a good network, beginning to be able to, oh, we're going, those watching, the signal has just disappeared for some reason. What is going on now? Technology sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I do not. Okay, I'm back, and again, I'm sorry. The signal is interrupted. So signal is back again. Hopefully it won't go for the third time. Again, apology for those watching. We enjoy technology, but when it malfunctions, it's very difficult to be able to correct it. All right. I would like to see if we can get any questions. If anybody watching wants to ask any question or has any comment, I want to see if I can find a comment on the feed. At this point, it looks like there's not many questions there. I just want to acknowledge Teresa Mayen, who's watching, and Prosi, Kaya, and Brighton. If you can just make a comment where you're watching from, and that'll be appreciated. Femi Ajay as well, we acknowledge you watching. Feel free to ask a question and make comments. Again, we're still talking about the need to change our mindset for us to be able to succeed. And in the context of Australia, African Australians, we come into a system, the Australian system, that is very much different from where many of us may have grown up in. And we need to be able to adapt to this system. It's a capitalist system. It is competitive. It is fast. It is value driven. And that means in order for us to adapt, we need to be able to tick all those boxes, cover all those things. Are we thinking in terms of what value we can bring into the community, what solutions we can provide, what is it that we can assist some people with? Because everything about business, for example, is all about providing solutions. And in fact, in life, you become successful when you are able to provide solutions to those who need it. The more solutions you can provide and the better quality, the more reward you will get from that. So we need to understand the system in which we are developing and then see how we can bring value, rather than just expect, for example, that if we want to succeed, we ought to get something from someone who is going to provide that to us. Nobody's going to provide anything to us. There's no free lunch, so we have to make sure we can do what we ought to do to be able to succeed. Now, I run a professional platform called the AfroShan Professionals Alliance, where we're trying to drive that point about us being able to provide more value so that we can, for example, in our professional career, be able to climb the ladder. Because at times when many of us get a job and we become very comfortable with that job, we don't think of the next step. And sometimes we even think, okay, these people maybe they don't want to give me a promotion because of XYZ. Racism comes into it very quickly. Maybe it's just that you don't sell yourself well enough. You may have the skills, you may have the capacity, the ability to go to that next level, but you ought to sell yourself. It's a different culture. You have to understand who has the controls and how you can eventually promote yourself even before they need you for that next position. So it's all about how much value you can deliver to your boss in order for you to be able to go to that next level. And then in business, we talking. I've seen so many of my friends, for example, who started a business and it couldn't go too far. They get discouraged very quickly because the business world is very, very tricky. If you want to go into business, you need to do your homework. You need to make sure that you have a good plan, and not just a business plan, which is obviously encompassing of all of everything that you're supposed to do. But when you go into the practical side of things, you need to make sure that you understand how you can make a difference, or you can create value and sell yourself out there, sell the solutions that you have. Now, I want to just go into the comment to see if there is anything that I would like to be able to mention here. Femi Ajay says the African communities don't have good role models for the youth. This is a major challenge. We need to create more mentoring programs. Yes, that is a very good point, because for someone to be successful, you actually need to have a good idea of what success looks like, and you see that when you see a person. If I see someone who's successful in a business that I'm operating in, I will go to that person and say, hey, would you mind sharing with me what you know? Now, there may be many ways of actually engaging, approaching that person, so that I'll be able to actually get what they have. There are many African professionals now. More Africans come in Australia as professionals than as refugees or forced migration background, as they call it technically. So we ought to be able to share what we have with our young people, because if we don't do that, and we have more issues happening with our young people, then the perception that is created in the broader community will actually affect all of us, even those of us who are actually quite successful. Because if that perception of Africans being involved in crime or being troublemakers becomes widespread, even those Africans who actually, and the majority of Africans in Australia, are not anywhere near all these silly things that some of our young people do. But the perception that is created because of the media, because of the everything that is happening, it is affecting other people who are not necessarily linked to some of those issues. So we have to be willing to serve as mentors. If we can share our skills with young people. The problem is, though, how do you do that? Where do you start? Now, it's not as easy as that, because I know I started thinking about that from the African Professional Alliance platform that I had the opportunity to chair. The good thing, actually, one of the best thing about this coronavirus, for example, it has shown that a lot of things can be done online. So we are looking at potentially starting an online mentorship program where we can connect people with mentors. And another easy way, actually, is if you know something, if you have skills in any particular area, contact us, because we can give you the opportunity to provide mentorship online, and we can get you to present things through this platform, and we can enable people, and that will enable people to know what you have to offer, and that could even be an opportunity for you to start something, because if you can offer value in whatever you have and whatever you know, and then you may do that pro bono to help other people, but you may also think of starting a business where you provide that for a fee instead of for free. So there are many ways where we should be able to do that. So Khadija Kroma says, you can't blame the media. These people need to know where they came from. It's very disgraceful for other Africans. Yes, we know. In every community, you will see some bad apples. There are bad apples in every single community everywhere in the world. The problem, though, is the media is not always fair in the way they report. Yes, they should be able to report what they do, but the impression they're giving to those who don't know the African community is that that's all there is about Africans, and which is obviously not right. So the only way we talk about the media is the fact that they should be able to report other great things about Africans, in addition to some of the challenges that they have, and they should be fair in the way they report, but they certainly have the right to report. We don't blame them. On the other hand, those communities that have more issues than others, because we know there are groups that tend to have quite a few issues, they should continue to work harder to try to resolve some of those problems, because it's not a good idea to ignore a problem. If you ignore a problem, well, you are actually making it worse. You have to acknowledge, yes, there's a problem here and there, and now what is it that we need to do? How do we do it, and who can we work with to be able to resolve that? People shouldn't be shy in naming these issues that are happening, and then finding ways to resolve them. And I just want to acknowledge Alphonse Ruth Yesire, who's in Adelaide there. Alphonse, thank you. Feel free to contribute to this conversation. We want it to be a conversation. We want it to be also an opportunity for people to present their views, and so that together we can see how we can make progress, because all of us don't have the easy access to the media. Some of us do. I've seen a lot more Africans having access to mainstream media from time to time. For example, the Sudanese lawyer Nyadol, who has been on ABC a few times, and there are many others like that. But the majority of the community doesn't have access to mainstream media. So we ought to be able to develop our own ability to communicate, to use mass communication platforms, and AMA is one of those. There may be others, but we ought to find ways to get people to have a way where a conversation can be held and ideas are exchanged, and perhaps that will inspire other people to do something, because ideas are important, but if they are not put in practice, they are almost useless. We ought to be able to go from ideas into practical things that we can do. So work, again, we need to look at our work culture. I was talking earlier about purpose and vision, because once your mindset is right, and then you need to be very clear on what is it that you want to achieve, and have specific goals on how you want to go about that. But then you got to get into work, and that's where the focus has to be, because until you get into work, everything else is just in your mind, and nobody knows what it is. But when they see the work that you are doing, that's when they see, whoa, this person deserves some recognition, this person deserves support, this group deserves XYZ. So we ought to be able to program our work. Now, our work culture, this is something I've seen as well happening. We need to make sure that our work culture is connected or suitable to the culture in which we are living, which is the Australian culture. I know that a lot of times people, when they find work, there are some issues there that they, because you have to get used to the workplace, to the work culture, wherever you are, and then be able to navigate that place in the best possible way, develop sufficient team skills, know the button to press to get what you want, know how to satisfy your boss, and have that good image and impression, so that the boss can think of you when there's the next opportunity, as I made the point earlier. And again, Femi is commenting and say, I think it comes down to a mindset. Africans need to understand that greatness is achievable regardless of skin color. Absolutely, greatness is achievable regardless of skin color, and we ought to be able to go for it. There's a degree of aggressiveness that we have to have. We don't have to sit back and expect that things will come to us, and that is something that is actually missing a lot in many of our communities. We have to go out there. We have to aggressively pursue goals and say, okay, even if I don't get it today, I don't get it tomorrow, if I continue to push and push hard enough, I will eventually get what I want. And then who are the people that I need to work with in order for me to be able to get what I want? I see a comment from Prosikaya, who says, these kind of programs are great. Do we have career workshop where professionals share ideas to African community? Yes, that's something that we are in the process of putting together as part of this platform. And again, if you have any capacity and you have some time to contribute to that, because all of these things, they require people to contribute. We all have a variety of commitments that we have, but if we can give something to the community, make ourselves available, give the ideas, of course, but also give the time and energy that is required to bring those ideas into fruition. So feel free to contact us. You can inbox us on Africa Media Australia if you would like to contribute to that level. But it's something that we are thinking as part of the Afroshan Professionals Alliance to organize workshops, to organize mentors, and do that mostly through online platform, because we can now, with all the development of Zoom type of platform, we don't necessarily have to meet physically, even though we cannot fully avoid those physical meetings, because they are very important to develop that relationship and intimacy sometimes that is needed to take things to the next level when people come together. So these are things that we ought to be able to think on a daily basis about how do we improve our lives. Africa has a great future. Africans will bring that future to life. If we think that we have the capacity to do that, we have the will to do that, we are ready to put in the effort and pay the price for progress, then we are going to be able to make that. But if all we have is ideas, all we have is comments, then we are not going to be able to get to where we need to go. It is really crucial that we go from just thinking, because I know many of us have very good ideas. People have the will to actually do things, but when it comes to doing those things, somewhere the mechanics doesn't work quite well, because the commitment is missing. This platform, Afroshine Live, is more focused, not so much on the problems, because we have quite a few problems, and that's all okay. There are enough people in our communities to take care of those issues. We want to focus on progress. We want to focus on success. We want to focus on achievement, excellence within our communities. I think we ought to talk about these things more and more, because whatever you focus on will magnify. Whatever you focus on will eventually materialize. And that's the point that we're wanting to drive through this platform. Here we say we want to talk about excellence. We want to talk about work, achievement, and we even have a platform where we call it AfroShine Awards, where we actually acknowledge the work that people achieve, the great stories, success stories that happen in this community. I'll just see if there's other comments here, because I would like to have this show a bit more interactive, where we get to hear from you, and you make comments, you ask questions, and we're trying to see how we can respond to that. But just remember that the overall point we're making tonight is that Africa is set to be the next China in terms of the economic growth that can come from the continent. Africa is the future of the world, and if you follow world leaders, they're already talking about that in Europe. They're talking about that in America, in Australia, and many places. But that can only happen if Africans come to the party, so to speak. We have the potential, we have the wealth, we have the capacity. I was just having a conversation with an Indian brother a couple of days ago when we were talking about finance, and I was asking him a question, because we see a lot of Indian brothers in Melbourne, for example, where I am, and I'm sure it happens also in many other places in Australia, where they are buying houses everywhere. They're very active in business, and they're becoming quite dominant in some areas in terms of what they are able to achieve. And we're talking about what is causing that, and how us Africans, for example, could learn from the Indian community, which is still relatively new compared to many other African communities. The Indians have been coming en masse in Australia for quite some time, but it has accelerated over the last 10, 15 years or so. But Africans have been coming en masse in Australia for about 30 years now. And we ought to be able to accelerate our own journey into more success, more achievement in many areas. And we got to talk about the needs to actually not only work together, but know that you need to go to the right person for specific needs that you may have. Now, if I have a need, for example, to buy a house, I may not have enough money to qualify for the loan from the bank. What do I stop there, or is there any other way? Now, you would know that if you have a very good financial person, they'll tell you that, well, the big banks have their criteria that usually are quite hard to meet, but the smaller banks are much lenient in terms of how they provide credit. So instead of just stopping when you go to Commonwealth, NAB or Westpac or NZ, and they decline your request, find somebody who knows their game, and they can facilitate that purpose for you. So, and we need to have resourceful people like that, expert in our communities, who know what they are talking about, and they can actually help us to achieve goals. We tend to stop very, very early in our quest for success. When you fail first time, or you stop. Right? That even in business, you should continue to try, because failing is just another way of finding out that you did that thing the wrong way. Trying to find the best way of doing that, and sometimes some of us don't always have that mindset of saying, okay, I failed here, what did go wrong, and how can I improve? And that's very important. I'll just again take another comment from Alphonse, who said there is a big conversation going on at the moment outlining on the great future outlook about Africa. It is important that in our own ways we try to be the best we can wherever we are, without feeling sorry for ourselves. couldn't agree more. We don't need to feel sorry for ourselves. We need to come up to the challenge of being the next global economic engine, and that means we have to have the mindset that is required. We have to work. We have to give everything we can. Chinese. I was in China a few years back, and I've seen that the level of entrepreneurship in China is mind-boggling. Every Chinese is trying to make money in some ways, and they know the world is going to China for a variety of things. So people do whatever they can to try to meet some of those needs, and some of them actually don't always do the right thing, which is why you see many of these Chinese goods, some of them not the best in terms of quality, but at least at the level of entrepreneurship, creativity, innovation, they've started making a lot of progress. They started initially by just copying things, but they are improving on that. So we ought to be able to also look at what we see around us. As I was saying, talking about the Indian brothers, for example, they are doing quite well. How can we copy in some way? How can we learn from them and add our own signature into what is happening? So, this is a conversation about success. We're going to have more of these. We're going to look into the challenges. How can we become more successful? Success starts from your own mindset, your own mind, and then it goes into how you also liaise and interact with others, and how aggressive you can be, both in terms of work, in terms of relationship management. That's perhaps one thing I will talk last before we finish this session today in about 6 minutes. One of the things I've seen in many contexts is that we tend to be quite emotional, and easily have issues with other people in terms of how we interact with them. Well, we need to look at how we manage our relationship, because everything in life really is about relationship. If you're successful in your relationship, starting with your parents, with your spouse, with your friends, definitely you'll be successful in many things. A lot of times in work settings, we tend to have a few issues in terms of how we manage our emotional reaction to a lot of things that happen. So we need to be tough, and I know many of us are actually quite tough, but sometimes we tend to let ourselves go into things that perhaps we shouldn't invest too much attention into it. And also learn, they call it emotional intelligence. We all know about that. So we just need to raise our level of the things we can shoulder even when we are hurt. Become more aware of how we're thinking and how that thinking is actually affecting how we behave towards others and how we relate to others, and not let our emotions hold us back, but rather use our emotions to drive us forward and be able to achieve success. It is crucial, especially when you work in a team environment, that you do your best to make sure that what's happening within you is going to assist you in moving forward rather than holding you back. Don't just even when somebody has done something wrong against you, and that happens many times, even in politics. But if the goal of working together is still more important for you, then forget about what that person has done. Just continue to work with them until you have achieved the goal. Sometimes things happen because of any number of reasons, and our emotional intelligence, the management of our emotions, it's an area that is very critical, because you can be very smart, but you can be very hardworking, but if your relationship management is a problem, and then your success will actually suffer from that. It will be more harder for you to achieve success because you don't have enough people to support you on your journey. If you're a very good people person, you have a good vision, you have a good work ethic, nothing will stop you, because besides the internal drive, you can rely on partners, you can rely on people who can come to the party when you need them and assist you. Because a lot of things that happens, actually, even let's say in the simple context of getting work, if you've gone out of work, you lost your job, how do you get the next job and maybe a better job? Well, you can rely on applying through, a newspaper or the internet, but that's not the best way. The best way for you to get the best job is to go through your network. We all know that. Now, if you have a good network with good people, most likely you have good jobs, because, as you would probably know, many of the jobs that are available in the economy, they actually get given to people with whom those who are responsible for giving those jobs have some sort of connections. And it's not always the case, but in a lot of cases, you get good job through networks. People will know you, and people will connect you to some good information, and all that will make sure that you can actually get the work that you want. So I'm coming to the end of this show tonight. I know it's been quite fast. It's already 43 minutes into the show, only about 2 minutes left. I just want to encourage you to like our Facebook page. That's africamedia.australia. Also like our YouTube channel, which is Africa Media OZ, so that you get notified every time we have the opportunity to publish something. And this particular show, AfroShine Live, is going to be live and interactive every Tuesday and Thursday night. Potentially in the future we can make it more frequent, but at this stage is Tuesday and Thursday. If you have any skills that you want to share, or if you have a particular thing that is dear to you, something that you like to communicate, or something you like to do that has that can add value to others, feel free to contact us. We will try to provide you access to our platform so you can do that. We reach over 10,000 people almost for every publication through our Facebook, website, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all these other platforms that we publish our material on. So we're focusing on success, we're focusing on development, we're focusing on business, leadership, and excellence. That is all about AfroShine Live, and we hope to see you contribute to this. Next Friday, actually, in just about, today is Tuesday. This Friday, we will be having about 4 lawyers will be joining us for a conversation on legal matters. It's Law Week for those who may not be aware of it, and we will be inviting 4 African Australian lawyers that we're going to be having a conversation with to tell us more about what Law Week is all about, and what job they do, and how they can encourage others to follow their path. We're starting to have a lot more African Australian lawyers all over the country, and that is a good thing. We can show the professionalism that we're bringing into this country and the contribution into the economy. All right, that will be it for now. I want to say thank you for giving us your time to watch this show, and share the video, and we hope to see you next time. Until next time, stay connected and be blessed. Thank you.